to Relatively Sane. Oh my God, thank you so much for listening. What a crazy week. Everyone's starting to go out. Everyone is coming out of their house, and it is nuts. I feel like we've all been cooped up for a year. You know, some of us alone, some with people we like. I think that's the rare situation. A lot of people have been cooped up with people they can't stand at this point, and they're just raring to get out. And oh boy, I've noticed some crazy energy. I don't know if you have too, but God, I was driving yesterday and there were people. I don't even want to say people because it's men. You know me. I love men, but rarely do you see a woman driving in a car that's like, boom, 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 like with that engine going 110 miles an hour, weaving in and out on the highway, cutting you off, not using their blinker. I mean, what are these men doing? And it's so dangerous. I mean, I'm in an SUV. Basically, it's like a huge wind gust hits me. My car almost falls over to the side when they go past me. It's so fucking annoying. I can't stand when people do that. It really, I think horrible thoughts in my head. And then I feel guilty that I think these thoughts. Like, I'll be like, oh my God, I want them to get into an accident. I'm like, oh God, I hope they don't get hurt. I don't want them to hurt someone else, but I do want them to crash into something, and I want their car to get fucked up. I mean, that's the truth. I really do. I'm not going to lie. Or at least I want them to get pulled over, get a ticket. Oh, it's just so annoying. And people have been very angry. I was thinking people might get out and start being in a good mood and being happy, but I don't know. The crowds seem to be happy. I've done some shows inside, socially distanced, and the crowds have been good. You know, they've been excited. They've been clapping a lot, getting some standing ovations. So that's very nice. I have missed performing in front of live audiences so much. I've done so many Zoom shows, and a lot of them have been for babies and incredibly old people. Like, their face is right up against the screen. I can see the inside of their nostrils, and there's a lot going on. They're always like, can she hear me? Can she see me? Can I see her? I don't feel well. What's happening? Where am I? Is it my turn to bowl? I mean, there's so much going on. There's babies. Everyone's holding up their animal. I'm like, okay, I'm doing a stand-up set. You have a very cute dog, but has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. It's just been a lot. So things are going to start getting back to normal. I'm so happy about that. I have a ton of dates coming up. If you go to my website, jessicacurson.com, my dates are being posted. Follow me on Instagram, jessicurson.com. Follow me on Twitter at jessicacurson. And, oh my God, did I just say at jessicurson.com? I don't even know what I just said. My dates are up on my website, jessicacurson.com. My Instagram is at jessicurson, and my Twitter is at jessicacurson. I don't even know what is going on right now, but I think a lot of you know me and you understand that my brain is very complex and I'm confused. I'm confused a lot of the time. It's amazing I get through life and end up getting where I need to go, because I am lost. I have always been lost, and I always will be. And also, are you a member of my Patreon? I post bonus footage. I'm posting a lot more soon. I have a lot coming in. I post a lot more bonus footage from my masterclass that I've been posting every Monday on Instagram. And I post bonus footage from my Disgusting Hawk podcast. Go to my YouTube channel, subscribe. Sorry, I have to do all this promotional shit because I want you guys to keep in touch and I want you to see what I'm doing. I love you all. Be safe. Oh God, enjoy this nice weather. You're beautiful. Enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Relatively Sane. I am here with my very good friend, the brilliant Bruce Vilanch.
Neither a relative nor sane. But here it is.
Well, you're kind of a relative. I feel like you're I don't
Well,
know.
we're probably all in the lost tribes.
Yeah, and you're Jewish and from New Jersey, so it's
This is
very
true.
familiar.
There's a link.
There's a link.
It's not missing like the Loch Ness monster, who still hasn't been found.
That's a
Milk,
great
milk
shirt.
cartons have been of no help.
That's, oh my God, that shirt's amazing. For anyone who's listening and not watching, he's wearing a shirt with a
It's
milk
vintage.
carton.
It's a missing milk carton shirt with the Loch Ness monster on it.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. So yeah, you grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, which is right near where
I
I grew
did.
up.
Guilty, absolutely.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in South Orange.
Oh, well, that was much tonier. Paterson was like, a big industrial city by New Jersey standards.
Yeah.
And but it had fallen into intense disrepair. It was on the decline already when I was a kid. And
Really?
yeah, now, I mean, to give you an example, just where the temple where I was bar mitzvah is now a mosque. I mean, it's
Oh
just like it's gone from yin to yang. It's got, you know, when I was there, they hated us, we hated them, and now they bought the building. What can I tell you?
my-
But I guess
they
this
kicked
is
you out. Yeah.
fellowship. This is the ultimate interdenominational fellowship. But the town, it kind of wasted away, and then Hamilton put it back on the map because
Right.
he discovered the town because of the Passaic Falls, which was
Yeah.
a power source. So and people, are researching all things Hamilton, and it pops up. And the town would have been named Hamilton, but Hamilton said, no, name it after Patterson, who was the general in charge of the British forces.
Oh, I
Uh,
never knew any of this.
yeah.
That's so
And he
interesting.
was the governor of New Jersey, actually. He'd become the governor, Governor Patterson. So it's named after him.
Oh,
But that was Hamilton's idea, from what I understand. Anyway, because of Hamilton, suddenly it's become like a mini tourist destination. I mean, people schlep out to look at the falls, and the falls have become a national park. So they
right.
get
So
they
people
get
don't know
money
that
from the
about
government.
Jersey, that there's places like there's falls in Jersey.
Oh, it's like Niagara. It's like,
Right.
of course, Niagara is gigantic. I think it's the second largest in North America. This is not saying a lot because there's Niagara, which is, like Victoria Falls. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex of waterfalls. And then there's the Passaic Falls in Paterson, which are a lot smaller, but very impressive. They really are. I mean, when you're actually standing in front of them, you can't believe that you're in the middle of a city, and
Yeah.
this is happening.
It's
Pretty
so
great,
so interesting because in South Orange we have the reservation and it's
right?
amazing. It's beautiful. There's waterfalls there and woods. It's
No,
gorgeous.
South Orange is really pretty. Actually, we didn't even realize that the whole area of North Jersey is really gorgeous. And
Yeah.
we were so busy being in the city and dealing with urbania that it rarely occurred to us to go out there. I mean, I went to a day camp. My father was part of an organization called the Veritans, and they had a day camp in Haledon, which was next door to Paterson. And it's where Thomas Edison shot exteriors for the Great Train Robbery, which
Oh
is
wow.
the first movie ever made.
Oh,
And the
that's
tracks are still there. It was the old Erie Lackawanna single track went up through the forest. And
Bruce,
that's where he went and shot it in
you're a wealth of
1905.
knowledge. You know every time I'm with
You
you, I
know,
learn something. Yes, you do.
I am a cesspool of information, Jessica. I
That's a
can't.
negative way of saying it.
I'm breaststroking through all of the chazarai that I know.
The Chazarai. I love that.
I'm
You
just hoping I retain into my dotage some of the stuff that I know.
But you started acting at a young age. I read that you
I
started
was a,
doing
I
it.
was a child actor. I was never a child star, or we'd be
Yeah.
having this conversation in rehab. But they don't do well. They're like French bulldogs when you leave them alone. They don't do well. Uh, but my parents saw me making faces in the mirror, and I liked to dance, and I would perform at anything, any possible moment I could perform. And,
Right.
and they were very smart. They encouraged me. They enabled it, and let me go out and audition for things and do commercials and stuff like that. It was not like they were not making a living off of this. My father
Right.
was a doctor, and my mother came from some money, and they had money, and so it wasn't about oh my God, the kid's a star. Well, we're gold. We don't have to do anything. We just manage him. That wasn't what it was, and I
Right.
didn't become a star off of it, but I had a good time, and their only concern was that as I got out of childhood into husky, where that's the clothing department for neither man nor boy. You're husky. And
Yes.
I was a husky. And so I wasn't quite so charming anymore. And they were concerned that I would have something else to do to fall back on. And
Hmm.
that was why they then encouraged the writing once I started doing that.
Oh, that's great. And then you went to Ohio State.
I did.
And yes. And then you started, it seems like you got jobs, like you
I
started.
did. I
Yeah.
was a feature writer, and I wrote about show business because that's what I knew because I had been around. And so I got a kind of Rex Reed job at the Chicago Tribune when I got out of college, and I was covering show business and features, and everything went through Chicago. So I was doing interviews and all that. And shortly after I got there, I met Bette Midler, who was on Broadway in Fiddler on the Roof, and had a nightclub act sort of that she did at the Improv, and her manager was Bud Friedman from the Improv, and he booked her into a club in Chicago
I
called
didn't even know that her manager. I know Bud. I didn't know that was her
Oh yeah,
manager.
oh absolutely, yeah. He
Yeah.
had a whole little stable of people, and he put her into Mr. Kelly's, and he called me up because he also had Freddie Prinz. He would find people at the Improv and would sign them.
Hmm.
And Freddie had come to Mr. Kelly's, and I had written a very nice review of Freddie, and did an interview with him, and then went to LA and got Chico and the Man, and suddenly he was a gigantic star.
Hmm.
And so Bud sent Bette out to Kelly's, and she opened for Mort Saul, and she was phenomenal. And I wrote about her, and she liked the column, so she called me and said, "You're very funny." And I said, "Well, you are funny. You should talk more on stage." And she said, "You got any lines?" And that was the beginning. That was only 50 years ago.
Oh my God. Isn't that unbelievable? That's how it started. It's so
That
incredible.
was how it started. Yeah, and from there it went to a lot of other people who I also met in Chicago under similar circumstances.
So you started writing for her and then people like liked what she wrote and she referred you to people and it
Well,
just kind
she
of was
hit,
that. Yeah.
she went to the Tubs, the Continental Baths, and then a guy from the Johnny Carson show, which was still in New York,
Hmm.
saw her and put her on Carson, and she did Carson like 24 times. And then she got a record deal. She moved out of it. She moved to a club downstairs of the upstairs, which is very chic, Upper
Yeah.
East Side club. Joan Rivers was in the room, and Joan's piano player was Barry Manilow, who was
Oh my
doing
God. This
jingles
is
and stuff.
unbelievable.
And so Bette replaced Joan because Joan moved into the stratosphere, and that was where the record deal came from and everything. So by the time she got to Chicago, she had some stuff under her belt. When she came back,
Hmm.
she had some stuff under her belt, and people who knew who she was. They'd say, "Well, who writes for you?" And so I was getting these calls from these people, and they were coming through town, and I'd meet them, and then they'd say, "Write something for me." And after 5 years, the Chicago Tribune said, "You live in Chicago. You can't be on the road all the time." This was before
Right.
cell phones. There was
Yeah.
the beginning of fax machines, and you had to carry the fax machine in a briefcase like a
Yeah.
carrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then hook up a phone to it and send the fax to the other thing. So they said you have to make a decision. And right at that time, Bette had a dresser, Fayette, Fayette Hauser, whose brother was Tim Hauser, who had started an act called the Manhattan Transfer, and
Oh, I love Manhattan Transfer.
they're genius.
Yeah.
And we put their act together. Bette got them a record deal. Bette got them a manager, and we got a television series, a summer replacement show. And we came out to replace Cher for the summer.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
stayed. That was it. Bette said, "You had your bags packed, and you never looked back." It's true,
So did you,
actually.
when you wrote for these people, did you ever have the desire to perform what you were writing? No, I know
Well,
you
I
were
was
writing
always
for them, but
performing. I was performing. There was a club in Chicago called Punchinello's that
hmm.
was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was kind of like if Joe Allen's had a piano in it.
Yeah.
It was a kind of place where people went after theater
Yeah.
and there were a lot of shows in town, and a lot of touring shows came through, and everybody, the cast would all go to Punchies after
Hmm.
the show. And I started doing an 11 o'clock spot every night with the news of the day. Now from the Chicago Tribune, here's Bruce Vilanch, and I would get up and do the news of the day. And they had there was always a piano player, and so we'd do little funny little songs that we would come up with, and steal from Noel Coward, steal from Alan Sherman, all of that stuff, and so I was always doing it. I always sort of had an act, and I never stopped. And I also kept acting, but I couldn't act too much because I was working. I was
Right.
writing. So
So interesting. Is there this is going to be a difficult question, but is there
yeah,
one person, it might be bad. Is there one person that you feel like you really connected with creatively the most? Like it was the easiest person for you to write
oh
for?
yeah, it was Bet. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, she was
Yeah.
the first and the easiest. I mean, they've all been fun. I mean, there were a lot of people I
Mhm.
connected with and had a good time with, but she's the most important. I mean, when they made the movie about me, which was like already 20 years ago, called Get Bruce, a
Right.
documentary
Of course. Yeah.
produced by Harvey Weinstein,
Oh, great.
who never laid a hand on me.
What an insult.
I
That makes
know.
me feel bad.
Hashtag why not me? I was there with the bathrobe in the hotel. What do you mean? Come and get me. Evidently, not his type. But he did produce it, and it was Miramax and Disney who distributed it. But basically, it was Bet and Whoopi and Billy Crystal and Robin Williams. Those were the big four.
Oh my
And then a
God.
lot of other people along the way, Nathan Lane and Shirley MacLaine, and there's a whole. I got a whole roster. I was very lucky, and I had a good time. I never. I tried not to let it make me crazy.
Was there anyone where it was very difficult to write for them and you couldn't connect with them
Oh,
in that way?
um, well, the most difficult to write for are when I moved out here and I started doing award shows and variety
Oh
television.
yeah. Yeah.
Because variety television, not so much because when you bring an actor onto a variety show, it's generally for sketches or stuff, and so they have a character to play. But when they
Right.
come out to present an award, they have no character, and most of them have never experienced that, and many of them are camera people who've never really worked live.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to bring Keanu Reeves or Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, they are just movie stars, and they don't. Johnny Depp. They don't. Johnny Depp works live in a rock band,
Right.
but so they have to have. They have no real stage persona, and all the other people I mentioned work every night, and
Mm-hmm.
they have a stage. You have a stage persona. You know who you are when you get out there. I used to joke. Shirley MacLaine knows who she is when she gets out there. She knows who she was.
Yeah.
Joke has not aged as well as Shirley. I'd like to point out she's in great shape. But
Yeah.
uh, so that's the difficult. Those are the hard ones, and generally you have to kind of go with whatever the task is at hand. If they're
Right.
giving art direction, you have to give them something pithy to say about art direction that sounds like it's their voice.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
hard.
some of
Yeah.
them who don't have a stage persona have a voice. For example, I just wrote something for Frances McDormand
Mm-hmm.
to do on the Producers Guild Awards. Now, Fran has a voice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she comes out there and it's like no bullshit. This is
Yeah.
me. No, I'm no bullshit. And so I just wrote her something. So I say, boy, it's a virtual thing. She said,
Yeah.
boy, am I glad not to be there with you.
Right. Am I glad
I
not to
hate these things. And it's all very, so she unknowingly has created a persona for herself just by doing award show appearances.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a
No one
perfect
can say.
line. Yeah.
Uh,
What was it
but
like?
most of them don't have that.
Yeah, that is tough. And you've written for so many awards. I mean, God, it's
I am the EGOT
Oscar.
of award show writers. I've written for Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. I've written many of them, and a lot of other. I keep saying I'm down to the American Bulimia Awards.
The America Bulimia
American Bulimia Awards with your host Kate Moss. Kate, come out here. Trying to
Every
find a
time
more up to
someone gets
date
an award,
bulimic.
they vomit.
What?
You won the award.
What? It's the here's the award. Well, I'm not well. Now we'll get the bulimics on social media.
Oh, please.
How dare that fat queen make fun of bulimics?
Bruce, if for the everything I've said and done, I could be canceled 7,000 times. I mean, please. I was going to ask you about that, but I'm going to ask you that in a little while because I
Okay.
have so much to ask you. Tell me about Robin Williams. He was my idol. I don't know. I'm sure I've told you that. We've talked on cruise
Yeah.
ships and all over. I just was so in love with him. He saw me on stage at the Comedy Cellar and he heckled me when I was on stage at midnight on a Tuesday night. He's like, "You're amazing. You're amazing," from the back of the room. And
I'm
I
sure he
said,
would.
"Yeah." And I said, "Oh my God, who shut up?" Like I didn't know who it was. And I looked and it was him. And I said, "Oh my God, it's Robin Williams." And he said, "You're a star. You're a star." And after the show, he was hugging me and he said, "Don't ever change who you are." And
That was exactly my reaction. If you recall,
oh,
when I saw you on Atlantis,
yeah.
I said to you afterward, "You're the real thing,"
Oh, thank you, Bruce. That means
and
so
you
much.
are. I mean,
You've
you
worked
are.
with so many people.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're incredible. And I dragged you onto a benefit, a town hall. I remember where you scored, even though they didn't know who you were. It was like it was the nightclub awards or something. It was
Oh yeah, I remember that.
yeah. Oh, you did great. And but it was just so funny because I had to say that you've got to have her on the show. And, well,
I
she hasn't been
know that
nominated. I said, put her on just get her out there. I mean,
that was so nice that you did that. That was the Nightlife Awards in the city.
nightlife awards. So
That was a very big deal for me. That was very sweet that you did that.
oh
But
yeah.
did you worked with Robin, right?
I did. I worked a lot with Rob, and then he's in Get Bruce, and he's the funniest thing. He and my mother were the funniest things in the movie. He was amazing, and but a lot of people don't realize is he could turn it off. I mean,
Yeah,
he had. I mean, he was always when I first met him, he was charming and funny and speedy but always it was kind of like that. That was a performing persona. There was a whole other person there, and when it was necessary for him to turn that on, he turned it on. And it got as he got bigger, he had to have it turned on more often than not. And that didn't thrill him, but he did it. But there were very quiet moments when we'd be together. We would laugh when we were working. We would laugh a lot, obviously, And I would write stuff and throw it in the cage, and he would embroider. He'd go out and he would do it, and every night got embroidered. You know how material gets embroidered as you are working on it. You find something, you find a new beat in whatever it was you were talking about that you can throw it, and suddenly you have 12 minutes on something.
right.
So and people would say, "Oh, he's so spontaneous," and I would say, "Yes, he is the first time." I mean, you're hearing some stuff for the first time, and you're hearing stuff that he knows works. I mean, like
Right.
everybody else, but the illusion that he presented was that he was coming up with it on at the moment because the energy was so intense.
I do that too. I can make something look like it's the first time I'm saying it. Yeah, I get that. And I didn't obviously didn't know him even as close to as well, but I used to sit with him at the Comedy Cellar and he was very quiet.
Yeah,
He was very quiet when he would sit around other comics and very like kind of humble and just I don't
he
know.
was. He
Yeah.
was. Rickles was like that too. Rickles,
Really?
yeah, he was a person. And then when somebody would come over, he would turn on Rickles because he knew that's what they were expecting.
Right.
And then he'd finish him, and you think he's doing it, a bit, and then the guy would go away, and you'd say, "Now, the thing about Nixon was," he would get very serious, and talk like a person. So I realize that's compartmentalizing in a good way. I think that Robin, I didn't know that he was in a I assumed he was in a depression
Hmm.
when he got his Parkinson's diagnosis because I thought he couldn't be Robin. There was this terrible fear that he would not be able to do what he does. But what I don't think any of us knew was that he had this syndrome that we didn't know even existed, that we
Yeah.
found out when he got it and what it was, and that it gave you suicidal tendencies, and that was what led to the end. But he was he got a terrible, terrible diagnosis, especially because his physicality. I mean, if you look at a lot of the later movies he made, I think they were playing into that he was trying to do other stuff that didn't rely on that
Yeah.
kind of explosion of energy. And even I mean the Oscar picture, Good Will Hunting, had a balance
Mm-hmm.
of he was playing a shrink sitting there and talking like
Yeah.
this, but he had an intensity that came from the Robin. That was
Hmm. He was so good in that movie. Oh my
yeah,
God.
he's wonderful, and he was yeah, he's wonderful. He was a really, really, really sweet guy, and I mean, and he had there at a point in his life he was really, really coked out. And whenever people say, "Oh, I met him and he was terrible and he was mean to me," or whatever, I think that was the coke. That was not him. That was
Mhm.
a function of whatever was going on, and an unfortunate marriage he was in, things
Yeah.
like
I mean, also people are so hard on celebrities. It's
that.
like someone wrote the other day something to me about a celebrity. They were so mean to me. I messaged them about doing a benefit and they never got back to me. I'm like, can you? They get 700, messages a day. Like you can't get so upset with people.
I I listen. I had 20 years of working with celebrities, and then I became one thanks
Mhm.
to Hollywood Squares.
Yeah.
And I had time to watch everybody before.
Yeah.
I had 20 years under my belt, and I realized that when you're a celebrity and people meet you, they if you're in a lousy mood, they will remember that for the rest of their
Yes.
life,
No matter what you did.
no matter what you do. And so it's your choice. You can let that overtake you, or you can realize I have to go through these motions
Hmm.
because there's no second take on this.
Yeah.
And I mean, my mother hated Marvin Hamlish because I was working with Marvin and she met him and she said, "Oh, I went to camp with your mother." I think she went to camp with a lot of people's mothers. "I went to camp with your mother." And Marvin said, "Oh, that's nice," and turned and walked away. And from that day forward, whenever she was that son of a bitch, whenever he was on television, that son of a bitch, because he just didn't engage her. All
Right.
she wanted was to be engaged
Yeah. Yeah.
by this guy because she felt she had an entree,
Yeah.
and
It's
he
so
was he
funny.
wasn't having it. And I think it was because it was the wrong moment. He was not, his mind was elsewhere, and he was not receiving.
It doesn't matter.
It
Like,
doesn't,
especially
but
with
it
a
doesn't
Jewish
matter
mother, it
because
doesn't matter. Yeah.
fortunately she wasn't on social media. So,
She'd be sending him messages every day. How dare you not
exactly right.
respond to my camp?
Comes
Yeah, that's so,
narcissism central.
yeah. It's so about how Hollywood Squares. How many years were you on that show? That was
I
amazing.
think it was six. It was the third iteration of it, and when it came back, the people who produced Comic Relief
Yeah.
asked me if I would, and I'd done specials with them. They asked me to be the head writer because they wanted it to be more of a comedy show than a game
Right.
show. And I said yes. And then they said they were going after Whoopi for the Center Square.
Hmm.
Actually, Whoopi said I should host the show, and so I had to test for it. That was hysterical. This
Yeah.
was for the win, Louise. It was not exactly what they were looking for. I mean,
We,
some other show might be,
right.
uh, but so they put me in a square, and I think they thought I might tame her because we were so close. But the opposite happened. But it worked. On the first day, we were
It was
climbing up
great.
to our square, and I said to her, "It's ours to fuck up." Because it's worked. It's been a hit every time. We could take it down, but it worked out. It was 6 great years.
You must have had a blast on that show. I
It was
mean,
great. It was, first of all, we only shot 36 days a year. We did
really?
we did a week and a day. We would do 5 shows a day, and so we would take every
Oh,
other weekend, and we would do 1 week on Saturday and 1 week on Sunday, and we shot 36 weeks. And in the rest of the shows, in the other 12 weeks, were reruns. And so it was great. I mean, I was writing all the time, so I was always busy with it. But
right.
the physical act of going to the studio and doing it was just 2 days, and it was great fun because it was like 9 people showed up at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and got heavily caffeinated and went out and we did these 3 shows, and then we would have lunch and have a lot of wine and do the 2 afternoon shows, which were the Thursday and Friday shows. And the
Oh,
audience, marketing people said, "Oh, that's great because the audience on Thursday and Friday is like fatouched already. They want the week to end. So
Right.
they are loose too. So it works out very well for you. But it was great fun. It was like a little party, and nobody acted up, because if you acted up, there were 8 other people looking at you, going, "Girl, girl, calm down."
No, who didn't like Hollywood Squares? I mean, that was just such a great show.
It was so ridiculous, and it in this in the renaissance of all these game shows with COVID, it hasn't come back because basically nobody realizes it hasn't gone away. There's a thing called Hip Hop Squares on VH1
Yeah.
that with rappers, because rappers are so funny, and they're doing a lot of the old material. They bought the old set, and I think they bought the old set of questions, because I hear things I remember I wrote
Really?
20 years ago. Yeah, but
Oh, that's so
they're
interesting.
not great when they're coming out of like Flavor Flav. Well, Flavor Flav is funny, but like a lot of anybody with Lil in front of their name is not terribly funny.
There's a lot of Lils now.
Oh, that Lil Nas. Well, he's gay and he's out, and so I
Yeah.
power to you, Lil Nas.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're as a group, rappers are not known for their quick wit or humor.
No.
I
But I
would
mean, I
have to
wonder if
say.
it'll ever come back again. I hope it does. Game shows are
It's
so
always
serious now.
they're always stirring it up, and it might. It's just the reason it hasn't come back is because it never went away. I mean, all of those shows, To Tell the Truth and Match Game, they were hits in the original iteration, and then there have been several iterations since that where they flopped.
Yeah.
So they feel brand new when they come on. Millionaire is the only one that was a smash the first time around. Although this time around, not doing all that
Not
well.
doing well. Yeah. It's not interesting. I don't
Yeah,
know why. Because yeah.
because I don't know why. Well, also the first time, I mean, there hadn't been like a big hit game show in prime time since the
Mhm.
Scandals when I was a kid. The
Right.
$64,000 question and 21 and those things. And so they had been like verboten. And when they brought back Millionaire, it was, and it became like gigantic. It was like, oh, the audience does have an appetite for these things in
Yeah.
prime time. And so a lot of other shows came back. Unrelated to that, we came back, Squares came back as a syndicated show. But
Yeah.
because there were so many shows and so many other people carrying on about Millionaire, they tried to make Hollywood Squares into more of a game show and less of a funny show.
Right.
And that kind of killed it off eventually.
Yeah.
Because
It needs to be
nobody tuned
funny.
in, nobody tuned in for the competition.
No.
And how could you? I mean, the answers were all like, everything's based on a hunch.
I know. I
And any
know.
question, for example, any question that started with the phrase, according to Dr. Joyce Brothers, well, who knows what Joyce thinks? Paying attention to
Who
Joyce.
cares?
And if I were the contestant, I would go, well, it could be anything. Who knows what who knows what she would say? And so then it goes, all right, okay, to you, Patti LaBelle. What do you think Patti LaBelle? She doesn't read Dr. Joyce. Maybe she does, but she probably missed that column.
I know. One of the things I'm also interested in that you've done is a one-man show. How long did you do your one-man show for? It was called
I
Almost Famous.
It was called Almost Famous, and it was right around the same time I was on Squares. I did it off Broadway for 6 weeks
Hmm.
at Westbeth,
Oh,
which was
that's a great theater. Yeah.
a great venue, and a
Yeah.
lot of people came, and then I did it around the country at different places, and it morphed into something else of what I do now. But it was that show was kind of frozen. There was a section in the second act where I took questions from the audience, and
Oh,
that was like the made up most nights. I mean, a lot of times, they ask you questions you've heard before, and so how you're going to answer.
hmm.
But it was a script. I said that I feel like Lily Tomlin out here, except that she does characters, and I
Yeah.
didn't do characters. It was just me.
Did you enjoy doing it?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I really did. I liked it because it, push the OCD button of like, well, I know what I'm doing. Let's see how it plays tonight. And at the same time, there was that in the second act, there was that freedom to come up with new stuff, which
Yeah.
I could maybe put in someplace else if the director would let me.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
correct.
thinking of doing one. I have a friend who keeps wanting, Will Nunziata. He
Oh,
keeps,
I love them. Yeah,
yeah,
the
Will,
brothers.
yeah, they're amazing.
God,
Will keeps trying to get me to do one with him, and I think I might start working on it because it's just I think it's an interesting thing to do. It's something different. It's not stand up,
yeah.
It's you can tell a story in a different way.
Well, yeah. Well, Judy Gold's done two of
Oh,
them.
hers are amazing. I've
And
been to them. They're
yeah,
great.
they were great.
Is there anything you haven't done that you wish you had done or you want to do? Anything?
Now, it's at this point, it's like, I'd love to develop a sitcom. I'd love to be a regular on a sitcom and make that kind of money before I go. Uh, I think that it would be fun. I mean, I've come close several times on things, but I'd love to go back to Broadway, back to theater, and after Hairspray, I did for 2 years, and uh, if something came up, I would love to do that. But just keep. I'm not like burning to do anything. I'm writing a novel now and a book,
Oh, really?
and I juggle, go from one to the other. One because I didn't want to just write a book like everybody. Here's what I wrote. I wanted to find a way in, so I found a way into the book. It's about all the awful television shows I wrote
Oh my
and
God.
survived, and they're legendarily awful, and they're iconic. Star Wars holiday special, things like that.
I know that is Star Wars Holiday Special is amazing.
It's a landmark, and people bring it up, and I say it's a work of rare genius.
I mean, Bruce, your life is like unbelievable. I mean, you've done so many things and worked with so many
I
people.
said, yeah, just say yes, like Liza,
I
say
know.
yes.
I mean, do you ever just look back and say, wow, I can't even believe what I've done? Or you kind of just take it, I mean,
I think I appreciate it. I mean, 20 years ago, they made a movie about it, which was very, very strange
yeah.
because it was like, um, you see yourself, and if they make a movie about it, I recommend it if they want to make a documentary about it, because you see yourself at many different weight levels and hairstyles,
Right.
and you begin to appreciate. You begin to say, "Oh, well, this is what I'm about."
Yeah.
Although I all I wanted really was to just have a life of variety, of infinite variety, it's been that way. I mean, I didn't want to have to wake up every morning and say, "Oh God, I'm going to the factory today." And
I know.
I never wanted to live in a corporate structure. Of course, we all live in corporate structures, but I didn't want to have that thing, that report to HR.
Oh, I know. What a nightmare. And
So
we've
you
we
said, we used to have a joke in Bet's Act way, way, way back, when she said, I'm sorry you didn't like that because, if I didn't do this, I would be a word processor. Back when that meant something.
Yeah, and
But she was
Bruce and
true.
I,
She was a secretary. That was what she was. And
yeah,
I mean, very well, a brilliant merit scholar secretary. But all she wanted to do was perform. And
yeah.
if that didn't work out, she was going to go back to being somebody's secretary. She was
Isn't that
convinced.
crazy? Bruce and I have done a lot of gay cruises together and resorts, meaning everyone there is our gay men. And
That's
it's
right.
incredible and it's a blast. And they hire the best entertainment, the best um DJs and light. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
the
And
parties are amazing.
it's unbelievable. The parties are, you can't even describe what the parties are like. They're
Well,
just,
just an idea for the layperson who may be listening.
yeah.
There is a great story about Atlantis, about the first cruise they went out on, where they ran out of liquor, number one, and they had to send out a boat with more liquor.
I never
Uh,
knew that. That
that
is,
one. And the other one was they were doing a huge party on deck, on the pool deck, with lights and and all kinds of stuff. And they got the captain called Rich Campbell, the head of Atlantis, and said, "I just wanted to share this with you. We just got a call from a ship that is 2 miles away, asking if we were in distress." And I said, "No, why?" And they said, "Well, we can see from here. There's people running around the deck screaming, and your rockets are going off, and there's all kinds of stuff." And we thought,
rockets.
Yeah, well, they were shooting
Right,
rockets.
I know, it's insane.
And they said, we thought maybe you were in trouble. And he said, no, no, it's a gay cruise.
We are in trouble.
We are in trouble.
It's insane,
Right.
in a good way. It's like everyone is barely any clothes
So,
on.
the other thing, well, I have to just finish it by saying this. The captain, uh, he said, the captain, the other ships, and there were all these like boom, boom explosions going off. The captain said that was Kesha.
It's so amazing. When do you think they'll start doing those again? Oh God, they're so much
Well,
fun.
I don't know. I'm not on the inside, so I really can't tell. But I know that the next one was going to be the Scarlet Lady, Richard Branson's ship,
Oh wow.
and that was going to be not the post maiden voyage, and they're booking now, I think, in October to
Mhm.
put the ship out there. But I don't. I mean, that deal went away, so I don't know. I haven't looked at the website to see. I think he's selling the Mediterranean August cruises around Labor Day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
he.
you've traveled all over the world with them, like I
I
have.
have.
It's
Yeah,
incredible. It's
it's
really
it's a
just a
gift.
blast.
Benefits. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about comedy now? I got to get your opinion on this. This is like the biggest thing I wanted to ask you on the
Yeah.
podcast.
A lot of people walking on eggshells,
How
because
do you feel about it?
everybody's so fucking sensitive.
I know.
And I know, listen, I'm gay, I'm Jewish, and so I get sensitive when those jokes come up. So I understand, and I'm also a white guy, so it's fine for me to say to somebody, "What are you getting worked up over Aunt Jemima about?" It's just like a cartoon character, and they go,
Right.
"No, no, it's a misrepresentation of what happened." And I'm kind of like saying, "Well, I suppose, I mean, I could say that, I mean, I'm not thrilled when they did. I'm not mad at the modern day Egyptians for what they did when we were slaves,
Yeah.
um, but it's farther back. But I understand. I mean, it's like I have the white privilege. I have the white gaze, and to other people, it lands another way. But that makes it really very difficult. You never know.
Hmm.
It's like landmines. You just don't know
I
that you stepped
know.
on one until it blows up. You think, oh, really?
Well, you must be dealing with when you write for award shows, I would assume that you have to be unbelievably careful with everything
Yeah.
you're writing.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you have to be funny. I mean, I saw Trevor Noah last night on the Grammys, and he was very funny. He didn't have an audience really that was,
Hmm.
was laughing, but I mean, he did say, I'm trying to think if he said something that was borderline that was funny. He said, "Music brings everybody together. Music and vaccines," which is a very funny line. But
Yeah, it is.
you know, um, but I don't know. I mean, uh, I said so. I did a Hollywood Squares benefit Zoom video, and Hank Garrett was on it. And Hank is a character actor who was a comic for years. Tony Bennett's opening act, very funny guy, and he was the first white comic to play the Apollo.
Oh, wow.
And I mentioned that when they got to my square, I said Hank is the first white comic to play the Apollo. He's the Meghan Markle of comedy. And everybody laughed. And then they said, "Can we use that?" I said, "Why can't you use that?"
Yeah, the people are nervous about anything. I wonder what's
Yeah.
going to happen into the future of comedy because there's many, many people who aren't going to silence themselves or
Well, of course not. I mean, they got mad at Bill Burr last night because he was on the Grammy pre-show, uh, and they gave him a Latin category.
I
And
know.
he said, "I say, well, what's the cisgender white guy up here doing all these giving all these Latin awards?"
Yeah.
He got flack for that. I just don't. You
And he
can't
was
win.
married to a black woman. I mean, Bill produced my
Well,
comedy
that's what's so
special.
funny.
It's
Yeah.
and he's really I I know Bill well. He's
Mhm.
probably the least prejudiced white man I've ever met. Like he's that's his network.
I
That's
thought I thought he was very funny on SNL. I know he got a lot of heat.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I thought he was very funny. But
But there's a lot of people that are like him that are kind of just they don't care and they're just going to say whatever they want. And then there's a lot of comics who are really curbing what they're saying now.
well, it all depends on where you work and
Right.
what kind of stuff you do. You know who you are. I mean, it's that hasn't changed, but it's gotten more intense. That's all.
So do you think someone like Bet, like who's been around forever, would have to curb which or think about what she like is would someone like that care? I'm not saying Bet, but I mean someone who's been around forever, who's always kind of just said what they want and has never been told you can and can't say this or that.
Uh, it really depends on who they are, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If they're devil may care, if they have the imp of the perverse, or if they've always been careful, they could say the hell with it. I'll just do what I'm going to do. It's I would venture to say that a lot of people who've been around for a long time and don't have to work have decided maybe I'll just lay back for a while.
Yeah, be quiet.
I will lay out on this arrangement,
Yes. I
and
think that's
the next
true.
tune I will come in with my horn.
Yeah,
I
because I
will lay
think
out.
someone like Joan would have
Well,
kept
John
pushing.
would have
Yeah.
tackled it head on, but who
Yeah.
knows? What she would have met with
Yeah.
at this point, because it is much more intense than it was when she was doing it.
Yeah. Did you write for Joan too ever?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Wow.
Off
Yeah.
and on. I mean, I wasn't one of her steady. She had people who like wrote all the time, like Larry Amorose
Yes, Larry. I
and
love
and
Larry.
back in the day, Tom Peru and a lot of people like that. But
Yeah.
I would come in, I would go out. We had several different projects together that were script things that
Hmm.
that all went south, but we had a good time anyway. And then award shows. I did the infamous Emmy Awards with hosted by Joan Rivers and Eddie Murphy.
Oh,
This was
wow.
only 40 years ago,
Oh,
but it was a landmark show because they'd never gotten such comments. Because basically, at the time, these were two late night personalities. Eddie was not yet a movie star,
yeah.
and they were hosting this primetime thing. And there was a huge audience who had no idea who either of them was.
Really?
Well, yeah, people, who go to bed early, who didn't know
Right.
who were watching the Emmys,
Yeah.
and oh my God, they just it was one thing after another that it was. I thought I'll never work again. I mean,
They were very edgy.
they were very edgy. I mean, it's 1980 edgy,
Yeah. Yeah.
different. I mean, because there was a lot of stuff you couldn't do on television back then. Now you
Yeah.
can do almost anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a rerun of Two Broke Girls the other night, and I think it was the pilot episode, and one of them is on the floor in the diner waiting on people, and the other one is in the kitchen having sex with the dishwasher, not the machine, the Puerto Rican kid.
I thought you meant the dishwasher. I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's
that's
it.
amazing.
And you can hear her.
Yeah.
You can hear her moaning and moaning and moaning, uh, and uh, and then there's this gigantic, you know, fabulous orgasmic moan,
Yeah.
and she finishes, and this other waitress is at the table and says, "Where's our waitress?" And the other girl says, "She's coming,"
That's hysterical.
and yeah, and walks away. And
That
I said, "Now we could never do that joke
ever. I can't
ever.
even
I mean,
believe that was on.
I mean, in the '80s, '70s. I mean, it's a whole new thing. Cable made that happen. Social media made that happen. It's the loosening of restrictions generally, and basically, um, also corporate America made it happen because if a sponsor saw that, Kraft cheese was a classic one. They didn't want to be associated. Kraft cheese would have a guy on the set going around saying too much cleavage.
Really?
Zip it up. Get a different dress. Get her out of that dress.
Someone from Cra
Well,
That's
because they would buy out a show, the Kraft Music Hall, or any kind of Kraft special. And the first Barry Manilow special, which I wrote, was a Kraft presents Barry Manilow.
Oh, okay.
And does it get cheesier than this? A joke we tried to use but could not.
Does it get cheese?
Does it get cheesier than? But that it was part of that. They came around, the backup singers. They said, "Oh no, no." We had backup singers. One backup singer was like loaded. She was like they used to say stacked, and they
Yeah.
said, "No, too much of that. Put her in a different
Wow.
outfit, or at least zip up the dress or something like that."
Yeah.
And that, of course, doesn't happen anymore. I mean, look at the WAP number last night on the Grammys.
I know. It's amazing. And it's on the Grammys. It's not even,
Yeah, I know. It's
primetime television.
as mainstream as you get.
Yes. Yeah. It's unreal. It's my mom sees stuff like that sometimes. She's like, I don't know what's going on. These women are grinding each other. Like her comments are so she's so confused. What are they doing? What's happening?
There was a very funny post a friend of mine had on social media today saying he was watching the Grammys on the phone with his mother,
Yeah.
and he said, "Is she Native American?" And he said, "Who?" He said, "Megan Tree Stallion." Sounds like an old Indian name from a John Wayne picture, doesn't it? Megan Tree Stallion. Strong. Bands with
Strong
fists,
woman.
Megan Tree Stallion. Uh, and he said, well, it was hard to go on after that. He said, no, she's American and she's a native, but she's not a Native American.
I know moms make my mom butt dialed me and she literally texted me and she goes, I'm so sorry, honey, that I ass called you. I'm like, it's butt dialed.
She's gone too deep.
I'm like, you didn't call me for ass. You butt dialed me.
Yeah,
Thank God you didn't call me for ass because that would be really inappropriate.
that would be.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so grateful to you, Bruce. I mean, not only for this, but I actually, it's so funny. I feel so emotional lately, but you have been so good to me. I know you probably don't even realize it, but over the years, you have never said no to me. Like, I'll just reach out to you once in a while, ask you a question, ask you for a favor, ask your advice, and you just always get right back to me. You're so giving and loving.
Oh, you're
And
the best.
I appreciate you. I do, because not everyone's like that. So I really
Yeah, I've
appreciate you.
learned.
Yeah,
Well, feeling is totally mutual.
thank you. And you've accomplished such huge things. I mean, it's amazing what you've done. So much more than we even talked about. It'd be impossible
I'll
to
come
talk
back.
about everything.
I'll
Um,
come back when I have something to plug.
absolutely. I'm also working on a sitcom, so we'll talk about that. Because the
All
minute
right.
you said I'd love to have sitcom role, I'm like, my head started.
Oh, wow. That would be the best.
Yeah. So, but I love you so much and I
Thank you.
appreciate you and thank you for
Totally
everything
mutual.
you've given us. Thank you for
All
all
right.
the content
You're
you've given.
welcome.
All right, cool. I'll
All
see
right.
you soon.
Well, we've zoomed, folks.
Yes. Thank you,
All
Bruce.
right. Take
Take
care.
care. Bye.